There was once a plain, honest mouse who lived in a modest but comfortable hole beneath a hedge at the edge of the field in the countryside. One day, a friend came to stay with him, a mouse from the city, a slick, pleasure-loving fellow. Now, they were old playmates, these two. They'd known each other for a long time, but they'd rarely seen each other of late, and so the country mouse laid on as fine a spread as he could for their dinner. Some slices of turnip from the field, a piece of bacon rind, some berries from the bramble bush above his hole, a thimbleful of nettle wine, and to cap it all, a slice of mellow quince from a nearby orchard. Well, the city mouse politely nibbled at the food while his host tucked in. But after the meal had been cleared away and the two mice sat smoking their pipes, he could keep silent no longer. "Old crony," he said, "I don't want to be rude, but how can you live like this?" "What do you mean?" "Why, in this cold, poky little hole in the ground, with this peasant food. I mean, I don't even know what that last thing that we ate was. It was a quince. I don't even know what a quince is. Look, listen, my dear fellow, you should be in the city like me, where the action is. Really, you don't know what you're missing." "What am I missing?" What are you? Pizza? Curry? Tara Massalata? Food from everywhere in the world. Central heating. Now listen, I'm sorry, I can't stand seeing you like this. Come back with me. Really, I mean, if we leave now, we can be there in a couple of hours. Come on, no arguing, get your coat. We'll have a feast. And so the country mouse, not entirely unwillingly, because he was curious to see the wonders of which his friend spoke, was bustled to the station and onto a train, and before midnight had struck, they were in the city. They hopped onto a tram, and the city mouse proudly pointed out museums and theatres and statues and fountains, vaping shops and shisha bars. And his friend was indeed dazzled with the splendour and the excitement and the beauty of it all. And eventually they came to a grand house. "Here we are," said the city mouse, "home." And he went right up to the front door and clambered through a little flap in the lower part of it. "Ah, that's useful," said the country mouse. "Good of them to give you your own door." "What? Oh, yeah, said the town mouse. "Come on, let's eat." And they squeezed under another door into a dining room and up onto a table. And oh, the wonders. There was hummus, stuffed olives, garlic bread, cheese and chive crackers, jelly. The country mouse was soon so drunk on the deliciousness of it all that he began to wonder why he hadn't come to the city years ago. And then, out of nowhere, a change in the air, a curious, a dangerous smell, a dark shadow, and suddenly, meow! Ah! The two mice shot off the table to escape the terrible shape that had leapt up there with them. They only just about made it into the skirting board, where they lay gasping for breath. "What the devil was that?" said the country mouse. "Oh yes," panted the city mouse. "Sorry, I forgot to mention it. There's a cat living here." "A cat living?" The country mouse shook his head, and as soon as it was safe to emerge from their hiding place, he set off back to his quiet, lonely hole under the hedgerow in the countryside and helped himself to a comforting slice of quince. Be happy with what you have, rather than risk everything for more. Welcome to part 2 of Breakfast with Aesop. Now, have you all had a good workout with Joe? Good old Joe. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, I'm very happy to see you. Please introduce yourself in the comments below the video. I'm Robert, and over the next few days, I'll be telling some of the stories of Aesop, and I'm going to be concentrating on a different animal each day And today's animal is exactly. Now, as regulars will know, and by regulars I mean friends like Tink and Moo, like Florence, Serena, Ezra and Arthur. Hi, gang. Now, the regulars know that as well as hearing stories, there's also an opportunity to learn some ancient Greek, and that was the language that the stories originally written down in. So today, we're going to learn two different words for mouse. The first ancient Greek word for mouse is mus. Mus. Mouse. And it's almost too easy, isn't it? Mus. It's almost exactly the same as the English word for mouse. A bit like yesterday, the Greek word for lion, leon. But there's another word that I'd like to teach you that is, if anything, I think an even cuter word than mus. And the other word for mouse that I want to teach you is sminthos. I think that's beautiful. Sminthos. Go on, say it after me. 1, 2, 3. Sminthos. Sminthos. Me, 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 me. Here's a poem about a sminthos. A pert young mouse, but just arrived from Athens, where he'd sometime lived, and daily to the portico to pick up learning used to go. Vain of the wisdom that he had stored, and of the books he had devoured, puffed up with pride and self-conceit, and proud to show his little wit, thus to an elephant one day he took it in his head to say, "Nay, not so pompous in your gait, because Dame Nature made you great. I tell you, sir, your mighty size is of no value in my eyes. Your magnitude, I have a notion, is quite unfit for locomotion. When journeying far, you often prove how sluggishly your feet can move. Now look at me, I'm made to fly. Behold, with what rapidity I skip about from place to place, and still unwearied with the race. But you, how lazily you creep, and stop to breathe at every step. Whenever I your bulk survey, I pity." What he meant to say, or with what kind of peroration he'd have concluded his oration, I cannot tell. For all at once there pounced upon the learned dunce an ambushed cat, who very soon experimentally made known that between mice and elephants there is a mighty difference. Moral: when fools pretend to wit and sense, and wish to shine at your expense, defy them to the proof, and you will make them their own folly show. Now, from yesterday, those of you who tuned in might remember, well, you might remember two things. One thing you might remember, I hope you remember, is the story of the lion and the mouse, how the mouse helped the lion escape from a net by gnawing through the ropes that were binding him. And the other thing you might remember is that some of Aesop's fables end rather badly for the actors concerned. That they can be rather brutal, possibly rather upsetting. So please steady yourself now for the sequel to The Lion and the Mouse. The lion could not forget the kind services of the mouse who'd released him from the net. And resolving not to be outdone in generosity by any other wild beast, he told his little saviour to name his reward, saying that he would give him anything that he asked for. Well, the mouse, fired with ambition at this gracious offer, did not so much consider what was proper for him to ask as what was in the power of his benefactor to grant. And so he demanded the lion's daughter, the young lioness, in marriage. Well, the lion consented, but when the wedding day came, the lioness, like the giddy thing that she was, not minding how she walked, accidentally stepped on her husband-to-be and crushed the poor little fellow to pieces. I'm sorry. Well, thank you for listening to Breakfast with Aesop. Tomorrow, if you'd like to tune in, can I suggest that you wear something green? Because tomorrow is my favourite day of the week. It's Frog Friday. Yes.